Welcome to the Teen Life Podcast, where we believe that teenagers are not a problem to be solved, but we are here to help you equip teenagers through the power of connection. I'm Karlie Duke, and for our special 100th episode,
yay!
I am joined by Chris Robey, and also Tobin Hodges and Sarah Brooks.
Hey, Brooks.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Hey.
I really felt like as Karlie was saying my name, there was some disappointment in her voice that this is the 100th one and Chris is still here.
To be fair, she's done 100 of them with you. So that's like,
that's tough. She's a saint, that woman, saint.
It is. But I do want to quickly introduce Sarah because Tobin has been on the podcast before. But fun fact, Sarah, I think you were our very first podcast guest when we started this podcast like 7 years ago.
Small and then
you weren't our first episode. Foundation. Yeah, you weren't our first episode, but you're our first interview. And so if you ever
go back, was so good you kept going.
Yes,
exactly. Many
I'll
link
episodes.
It if you want to go listen to Sarah from 7 years ago.
That's okay. We don't need to do that.
the brand is the same as Sarah, but I would not want to go back and listen to me and Karlie that long ago. We were very much rookies. So
the intro, it's all very cringy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so today we are doing something a little different in that we want to keep this fun for the 100th episode. I've sent some questions out to the guest, and some of them are fun, and then some of them I hope you'll also get like some nuggets of like, okay, I can take this and use this with teenagers too. That's kind of the goal, to be lighthearted but also helpful. But I do want to start with just an easy icebreaker, which is, what was your favorite TV show when you were a teenager?
I think so. My family didn't have cable growing up, and that was that's before, like, if you're a kid listening, before cable TV was really a thing. You had like what was called network television, and it had
dinosaurs were outside,
had antennas, and every night, I think it was the WB33 around here did a 2-hour block of shows that I just basically powered through every night while I was doing homework and, staying up late and stuff. So I think mine is a block of like Friends, The Simpsons, and Frasier and I Love Lucy. Like those are like the 4 shows that I watched every day before I went to bed. So
you're going with syndication, man.
I know it was a very, very syndication, but I loved it. And I still every time I watch those shows, I did love Frasier because my dad watched Cheers growing up. And so I was like, oh, it's the much nerdier, more boring version of Cheers, but it's but I still
very
liked
well
it.
Written.
Yeah, because you didn't have many options whenever you didn't have cable TV, so that's what I was dealing with. What about you, Sarah? What were your favorites? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Okay, I had a whole thing I was saying before I was muted. That was my answer too, Tobin. So we didn't have cable. But I also grew up in Memphis, and so our daytime TV shows were Martin, Sister, and Fresh Prince. And so that's what I was raised on, and ER, obviously.
Love ER.
Yeah.
Early ER is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it really paved the way for some really excellent medical dramas, but ER was the OG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I will ride the limited options bus, but I think I've got you guys all beat. But I will own this and not make the excuse that it was because of my limited options. Is because at the time it was awesome. We lived in Europe whenever I was a younger kid, and we literally had one TV station that was British broadcasting. We literally got our station from the UK. And it was Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved every second of that. And I will say it kind of doesn't hold up. I perused it through Netflix the other night, really amped up that this was going to be an awesome option, and it really wasn't. But at the time, it was great.
Chris, have we never met? I had no idea you grew up in Europe. My
middle school years.
Is this what happens in the 7 years I'm not on the podcast?
Yeah, it's
wow.
I talk about it all the time. Not really, but
man.
Yeah, no, it was middle school years for me in good old Germany.
And Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many more questions I'll ask you off there.
All right.
So I'm going to date myself a little more because I'm younger than y'all.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, back up.
I'll take control of this podcast right now.
Come on.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I watched stuff like Fresh Prince, and I loved Seventh Heaven was the first one I remember like putting the tape in and like making sure it was recording on Monday nights. But
VHS, by the way.
oh yes, my go-to was One Tree Hill, and that was like when I was like prime high school. That was my go-to. Gotta love the Ravens and all those high school things.
Yep.
It's cheesy looking back on it, but still holds up. Still love it.
Yeah. It was important at the time.
Well, I think moving on from that question's kind of the softball or the home run hit. I want to go more towards as we celebrate this 100th episode of all this content we've talked through over these past few years. One of the reasons we exist at Teen Life is to try to connect adults to teenagers because we believe that trusted adults make all the difference in the life of a student. But a lot of the barriers around working with teenagers are stereotypes of the things that you see on TV or just you just assume teenagers are like, and we don't always believe those stereotypes are true because we really think teenagers are awesome. But what are two ridiculous teen stereotypes that you have witnessed that you just think need to be dispelled?
I think one of the ones that comes out the most in everything is that they are apathetic or they don't care about stuff. But the reality is that they super care about stuff and they care very deeply and very emotionally about things. They just may not care about what you care about. And so us as adults, one of our first reactions to that is, well, they're just apathetic or they don't care. And when in reality is they care a lot about a lot of things. That's probably the biggest one I see. And one that kind of plays into that a little bit is I've seen a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions that teenagers go through kind of like cut by adults saying, well, you're young, you still have time to like, you'll figure it out, or you're young, like that relationship doesn't matter because you're in high school and that kind of stuff. And so I think that they kind of, it's kind of dismissive. And I'm guilty of that too, of, well, yeah, you're not going to marry this one, so it's okay, you'll get over it kind of thing. And, or that kind of stuff. So I think that we as adults kind of forget that as a teenager, we take things and we feel things hard, and it's okay. But it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that drives me insane is this idea that teenagers are always looking to get in trouble. They're just menaces and they need all the boundaries, otherwise they're just going to go off the rails. And this happened the other day. I had a gaggle of youths with me from one of the Teen Life groups that I'm running. It was spring break. They wanted to meet up because we weren't having groups, so they wanted to meet up. It was all very sweet, but there was a Target nearby, and I'm like, hey, let's go to Target and get some ice cream sandwiches. Well, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I hope that Target's going to treat us well. I shouldn't name drop them. It could be any place. But, we're walking into this store and I have a gaggle of youths with me. One of them has a puppy. There's kind of a lot going on. And I felt super okay about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I kind of need to protect these kids because anyone looking on is going to assume that they're up to no good. And then I'm thinking, surely that's not true. Well, the second I would walk away, a Target employee would descend upon them. And, is this a service dog? Are you in the place you're supposed to be? And then I would come out and be like, hey, we're fine. They're with me. We're just here to get ice cream. Well, it happened like 3 or 4 times throughout the store. And I kind of wanted to go to mama bear mode. I'm like, hey, if they're not doing anything wrong, don't assume that they are. It's like when you have toddlers and people in public will get on to your children. I'm like, you can get onto my kids if they're actually doing something they shouldn't be. But if they're not, let them be kids. I mean, these teens are just going to get ice cream sandwiches at Target. Just let them be teens. But there's this general assumption that at any given moment, they're going to do something nefarious. No, we're just here to get ice cream and then we're going to leave. And,
and we may
it's going to be great.
We may be a little loud about it, but that's okay. Like it's
and maybe we have a puppy inexplicably. I don't know. But you know what?
That was one of mine too, Sarah. Just, I think people assume they're getting into trouble of like, if you're not watching them, watch out. My other one though too, especially since I work with teenagers, I get all the time of like, oh, I could never do that. That sounds awful. Like, I feel like teenagers are scary to some adults because they're like, I don't even know what to do with that. They're too hard to put up with, the attitudes. And that just makes me so sad because teens are so fun. Like everything about them is fun, even the messy parts. Like there's just joy there and a molding of like who are they going to be when they grow up that I love it.
I think teachers get that a whole lot too. Like my wife's an 8th grade math teacher, which is two things that a lot of people shudder at, which is 8th graders and math. And she's there because she loves it. And that's like that's the kind of people you want there. So like don't question their sanity. Like just be thankful that someone that wants to be there is there with your 8th grader. Yeah.
I think along with that too, I think there's this assumption that teenagers don't want trusted adults around, that they want to push any kind of authority away. And now there is just in the adolescent process, there is that natural pushback on ideas. And that's we talk about that a lot on the podcast, how natural that is to push back on things, but it's not coming from this general sense of rebelliousness or I hate you or whatever. It is generally them figuring out who they are and them knowing that there's a trusted adult who will continue to show up even if they're pushing away or pushing against, is really important. And I think adults sometimes forget that, back when you were a teenager, there was that adult who meant the world to you. And you were just as seemingly off-putting, I guess, or stereotypical off-putting as they are to you. But that adult still showed up and still cared for them and listened to them. And so I think adolescents, teenagers really deeply desire adults to show up in a way that's helpful for where they are in life. And that's kind of where adults don't always get it right.
Yeah.
Well, and to just expect the best, right? Like I expect greatness. And so much of your perception is your expectation going in. Oh, well, teenagers are scary. Well, that's your expectation. So of course they're going to be scary to you because that's what you thought going in. But if we can view them as, hey, you're rowdy in like a really fun, loud, you say what you think, if we go in with this expectation of you're fun and you're rising to greatness, you're already great, but you're going places. I think it makes a world of difference in individual relationships, but also just how we view youths as a whole, right?
Okay, Sarah, I want to throw this one to you first because I feel like you are the game master of your family just loves games. So what are 2 games that either families or maybe just people who have teenagers in their home can play?
This was the single hardest question on this list because I could give you my top 112 games. So to ask just 2
to narrow it down
is rude. Yes. Top 2, hands down. I play them all the time with any teenager that comes over. Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. It is so stupid and so fun. And then my second is One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Brooks.
Which is kind of a deception-y game. I'm sorry, did I take your 2? Well, you know what? I'm not sorry. Because they're just good, clean fun. But what I love about them is they level the playing field between adult and kid. So if you can get a grandparent, a teacher, an adult, whoever, slapping a deck of cards in a game called Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, it just creates riotous fun that levels a playing field for everybody. And you're meeting on this shared level of this is silly. It's just silly fun. And then Werewolf teaches deception, but you know what? It's like a life skill. So no, I'm just kidding. It's just a lot of fun too. So those were my 2 number 2, top 2.
Isn't it kind of a version of Mafia?
It is. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yep. Version of which is, I mean, they play, all my teen friends love the game Secret Hitler. I don't know if y'all played it.
No.
It's actually a really great game, but it's like, I feel weird about it. So just thematically. So Werewolf kind of fits that vibe, but it's not quite as
politically and historically problematic.
Yes.
I think the 2 in my household of a teen is we love Yahtzee. Like, but my family is incredibly like dangerously competitive, and so when you can't really control like the situation outside of just dice rolling on a table, it kind of takes the because I obviously some people are better at other things, but this is just a straight luck roll the dice kind of thing, and so we get really competitive and and sometimes mean about it. But it's fun because it's all in good fun. The other one for me was the Jackbox party pack stuff
Oh,
that's
yeah.
on
Oh yeah. Yeah.
those are a lot of fun, and it's very accessible because you can do it through a phone and stuff. Also, it's a little dangerous because you might hear and see some things that you don't want you to see from your mom or teenager or grandma. But really good fun, fun things, and they have a lot of options too, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the two that I'll say, since mine were stolen from me, my family was gifted a couple of they're like single versions of Clue, like the old Clue game from the 80s, and it actually has like a storyline to it. And the way it's meant to be played is you play it out, and then you gift it to someone else, and they get to play it out too.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
And so it has a very, it has the murderer. It has an outcome to it, but it takes a little while. And it's kind of a slow burn, and we played as a family that it took us probably about 3 hours to do it. And anyone from my preteen to my little 7-year-old was able to do it, and it was a lot of fun. And this one, I'll go with the nerdy theme. If any of your kids play chess or are intimidated by chess, there is a version called No Stress Chess. Has anyone heard of No Stress Chess?
We have it.
Yeah, it's great. Basically, is where a grandmaster chess player could be defeated by a little kid because you draw cards and you do what the card says, and so it gives a kid the chance to figure out what do the pieces do, how do you move them, and then they can, like Sarah said, levels the playing field where you can play a game that's really intimidating for a lot of kids. But I think a lot of kids want to learn how to play it. But it's just a really intimidating game to get into. So it's a good way to get into something like that that's really good for your brain.
My two, the first one I'll throw out is Throw Burrito. I think there's an avocado.
Giant or regular size?
I've only played regular, but I'm sure giant is fun.
There's a yard size. Yeah.
Maybe almost gotten a black eye too from this game when my husband threw it at my face. It's fine. But think like old school spoons, which I played all the time as a teenager. That's just what we did with friends. But you add in like a dodgeball element with these like squishy, I should have grabbed one so you could see it, like these squishy burritos that you like grab and chunk at each other. It's super fun. Teenagers who are competitive will love it. Another one that is a more recent game that like me and some of my friends have played, but it's fun, is called Hive Mind. And that's a game I kind of mentioned earlier. But the whole point is that you ask someone a question, like even like, what are the 3 best board games? And everyone answers, and then you get points if someone else has your answer. Basically, you're trying to like come up with the most popular answers. It's fun, and I don't know. It's just it's an easy one that you can sit down and play the whole game, or you can play just a few rounds, and you can come up with your own questions too. Good one.
That's fun.
So, what would be for you guys a piece of advice you would go back and give your teenage self?
Oh man, how much time do I have with him?
Right.
That. I think the biggest thing for me is build better relationships instead of building a large quantity of relationships. I think I was real big. I had a lot of hats. I was in a lot of different extracurricular things, and so I kind of bounced around, and I had like my, different groups of friends. But what I think about when people like in teen life groups ask me about people from high school, I'm like, I talk to like 2 people from high school still, and it's because I didn't build enough deep relationships, which is okay. Like it's not like I'm sitting here dwelling, but I would have wished to go and like build deeper relationships with people instead of just having a surface level friend here and there that I could hang out with.
That's good.
I think mine is, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this right, but basically like no one cares what you look like or what you're doing more than you. If I think like when you're a teenager, you think like, man, everyone's watching me or everyone cares, and they really don't. Like everyone's being hard on themselves. And so like stop being so hard on yourself. Like I look at these teenagers who are so self-conscious and I'm like, you're so cute. Like you look great, and like just have confidence and live in that and not worry about what the people around you are going to think.
Yeah. My answer surprised me, actually. It was one of those times it was very introspective. I was like, wow, that's good. I might need to explore that. So my answer was I always got in trouble in school for talking. I mean, I wasn't the rebellious one. I just couldn't stop talking. And I just made friends with everyone I possibly could. And that was viewed as a problem. I mean, I got in trouble often for that. And while there is a time and a place, right, to be respectful and to sit and listen and whatever, people kind of tried to take that out of me, and I would go back and tell my teenage self that it's all for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
These things that you're super passionate about, these gifts that you have, they're going to come together when you're older. You know, now I get paid to speak for a living, and so it's like that doesn't always work out that way. But these gifts that you have, you know, we kind of talked about this earlier with our expectations of teenagers. We can place, as adults, we can place our expectations on kids instead of walking alongside this kid and helping them figure out who they are. You know, we try to tell them who they should be, who they are. And, you know, so I think I would go back and just encourage myself that, hey, you're you for a reason. Yeah. And some of these things that maybe don't make sense now, they're going to make sense. And that's okay. But if anyone is poo-pooing that, don't listen to that, because this is how God made you. And, you know, put yourself up with mentors and people further down the road that are going to help you get to who you are, not who they want you to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, mine really piggybacks on that. And I would just say it's okay to be who you are. And, because I definitely struggle with that. I mean, my story as an adolescent is moving from Europe back to the States as a sophomore in high school, which couldn't have been a worse time to do that, and move back into a big group of people who had already been friends for years and years and years, and very much feeling like the outsider till probably my senior year, when things kind of started to feel more normal. But I always struggle with that of like it's okay to not always know what's happening or what's going on. It's okay to be an observer, to take things in. And because Sarah, I'm opposite of you. I was not the talker. I was the wallflower. And I got a lot of grief for that, of like, Robey, you don't say anything. And, you know, why are you so stuck up, all that stuff. And that really wasn't the case. I just didn't really know my place and all that. And and I think the wallflower needs to know that there's so much value in that role in a friendship group or at a school, if there's people sitting back watching and taking things in. And so that's any student now who's struggling to figure out who they are. Knowing who you are is okay. It's okay to live into that. So
yeah, absolutely. That's good.
Okay, kind of similar to the very first question, but also a little different. What are two of your either favorite movies or shows that are set in high schools? So that like
Friday Night Lights.
Oh, good one. The movie or the show?
I needed to be the first to say that. The show. It's like the best show ever. Friday Night Lights. And I'm not I'm not a sports show person.
It's
Friday Night Lights.
It's a good show.
It's so good.
Yeah. I have two. I have a recent one that I'm probably way too old to be watching, and I have a.
Can we guess? I feel like I want to guess. What
you are going to guess
it.
You're not going to guess it because it's out of left field somewhat. But the one I immediately thought of was Boy Meets World. I love that show. I still watch that show. My 14-year-old son is starting to watch it because I'm a great parent, and so it's
a great show.
And it's just great. I mean, there's so many good things about that show. And then my current one is a show that like I got into because my wife was watching it, and it was one of those ones I watched an episode and I was like, "This is stupid. Why are you watching this?" And the next thing I know, I'm like locked in for 8 episodes. It's Never Have I Ever from Netflix.
Oh my word!
Yeah,
I'm so happy with that answer, and I wouldn't have guessed it. But
I mean,
fantastic.
it's got a lot of things in it that like are good for me because coming from a multicultural house like that, it's good to see that and kind of get a different perspective of that. It's also cool to see people of color get like a show like that talks about their cultures that I'm still learning about too, being married to someone from India. But also like it's just a different, like I'm not a girl dad either, so like that's a perspective that I don't get to see. And when I'm talking to students that are females and stuff, and it helps me kind of like be like, oh, I know this is stupid, but like, hey, this show talks about this. That's why this is funny in that show, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I try to stay up with current shows and music a little bit, so because I think that's my way of clinging on to I'm not old yet, and so that was one of those ones that I ended up getting so hooked into.
Boy Meets World was definitely on my list. I love that show
Mm.
always. I think I own even all the DVDs.
Mhm.
Another one, just to throw out a movie, and this one's more recent, but To All the Boys I Loved Before was a Netflix
Mhm.
movie. And it is just prime, like cute, like
Yeah.
clean, good teenage fun that like I
Mhm.
got sucked into real quick.
Mhm.
My movie was Never Been Kissed. I just feel like
Oh.
it's just a class. Josie
Josie
Grossi. It's just really relatable content.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll throw out the stereotypical one and the one that probably is more grounded in reality in my experience. But I love Saved by the Bell. It was
It's a good one.
Mm.
so not realistic, but it so is like that idealistic what you think teenage years should be if everything's awesome all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and it's coming back. AC Slater. I see AC Slater on on high school campuses all the time now. Like the
Mhm.
mullet, the perm, the
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
oh my word, AC Slater is back, y'all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
In
as I said,
2023.
it's not an accurate rendition at all, but it was big when I was a kid. But the more realistic, I know this is way in the awkward end, but Napoleon Dynamite,
It's
just
a great one.
the school scenes and them playing tetherball out, all these
Mhm.
different things that are just.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it I know it wasn't accurate, but some of the awkwardness of
Yeah, the cringe
yeah, the
factor.
cringe factor I felt like was captured pretty well in that
Yeah,
wonderful
absolutely.
film.
Yep.
Wonderful.
hmm
Oh, it's good. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
Mm.
Okay, so what is something meaningful you think that you could say to a teenager?
I think I kind of like y'all hit on this already a little bit when we talked about to our own self. I think we were also talking to current teens.
Sure.
The thing I wrote down was that just be yourself and it's okay to not be okay. Like it's
Mm.
like find somebody that you could talk to. It's okay to not be okay and be yourself. Like not everybody's going to understand that right now, but that's okay. They don't need to.
Mhm.
Kind of like what Sarah and Chris were saying is that the thing that makes you different that you're getting singled out for is going to be what makes you awesome whenever you grow up and you start putting in work. So
Mm-hmm. I put I'm listening,
Mhm.
and not just words, but really to be a curious listener. But also I believe in you. You know, in our teen life groups at the end, y'all may know this, but I know the people I'm speaking with know this, but listeners may or may not. The last week of our teen life group, we have kind of a round table situation where we have each student turn their backs to the group and we speak on behalf of that student, things that we admire in them, things that we respect in them, maybe something we learned from them that semester. And inevitably, after we get through all of the students in our last week of every group, all of the students will then put me in that chair. And they will then say things to me that they admire, that they respect. And I have yet to be um I'm blown away every single time by the things that they say, because they are not rocket science. They'll say, "Miss, you always told me that you believed in me." And no one's ever said that. You always said that I could be something great. These things, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents, as teachers, as adults to have the right thing to say, when really so much of meaning for teens, I think, is just being authentic and being present and calling out greatness in them. It's not, you don't have to have the most eloquent presentation to give to your child. You
Mhm.
really just, hey, I'm here. I see you. I think you're cool.
Mhm.
That is sometimes the most meaningful thing that we can say.
Well, and what I'll say too, and this might not be fully in the spirit of the question, and if it isn't, I apologize. But I know whenever I'm in group, one of the most meaningful things that, like, as body language changes when I say it to teenagers, is I tell them I'm not here to tell you what to do. And there's something about that when I say that to a teenager, that their shoulders go down, the tension goes out of their
Relax,
necks,
yeah.
they relax because they have so many adults who think it's their job to tell them what to do.
Mm.
Now, I will say there is authority. I'm going to affirm that there are times where direction has to be given, and sometimes we have to tell. Sometimes I have to be told what to do. Right? I mean, there's not. That's not to exclude it, but I think it's so oversaturated in the life of a teenager that every adult feels like it's their job to say, "This will. You need to do this, or you need to do that. You need to be here now or there now," and very few adults who will help them think and give them the space to process whatever it is that they're dealing with, and affirm, hey, that could be a really good choice if you choose to do that. And so that's one of the things I love to tell teenagers is I'm not here to tell you what to do. And I've had so many teenagers who will open up immediately because I know I'm not, and I stick to it. I'm probably to a fault, honestly, where I'm not going to actually tell them what to do. If they ask me, I'll tell them maybe what I think, but I'll also tell them that it doesn't really matter. In this case, like you get to walk out that door and take responsibility for what you're doing, and it takes me out of their shoes because I'm not in their shoes.
And
I've
noticed
that so much.
Yeah, and I've noticed too that if you give teens a space to come to you wanting advice, it's going to mean a whole lot more than if you go to them with advice. Yeah.
Well, and how often do we come? That was a much better way of saying, I think, what I was trying to say, Chris. But like, how often do we come to them with an answer instead of asking good questions? You know, a good question and then a listening spirit can go so far in a kid's life. We think we have to have all the answers as the adult, as the authority. We don't. We can just ask good questions and be with them while they find answers for themselves.
Yeah. Mine was definitely in that same vein. And it was just simply like, I want to hear what you think. Of like, ask them, like, of that listening, but also going a step further of being like, okay, well, what would you do in this situation? Before I put my 2 cents in, I want to know what you think first. And then I also think just so simple, but like, I'm proud of you can go so far for teenagers, especially if they don't hear that very often. If they're not hearing that from home, or if they're not hearing that from their family, for you to be like, hey, I see what you did here and I'm proud of you. Even if it's something really, really small, like, hey, you made it to school today. I'm so proud of you. I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, you're doing great. Like they just don't hear that either. You know what? You're being a teenager really well.
Yeah, you're making it.
Yeah, like you are doing the thing. Great job.
Yeah. Okay, so to kind of wrap us up, I want to know, what is something embarrassing that you either wore or did as a teenager? I'm going to kick off with the story because I know a few of us have some visual aids for those who are watching on YouTube, if they want to get those ready. But something I did when I was a teenager that I'm still like kind of embarrassed about, and I don't think they listen to this podcast, so I don't think I'm in like any danger there. But my senior year of high school, I had a really good friend, a really good guy friend that I was just convinced was going to ask me to prom. And we went for ice cream after church, and I really thought he was going to do it, and he didn't. But he like made a comment of basically like, it's coming, don't worry. And I thought I was texting my friend about that. I'm like, might turn red still. And I texted him. Texted him and was like, he didn't do it tonight, but it's coming soon, or like something like along those lines. But I'll just never forget. I know, it was mortifying. I like double and triple check my texts, like still to this day. But his response was so perfect because all he said was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how embarrassed are you right now?
Oh my god!
And I was like, okay, cool. Which
that's a perfect
we
response.
were still good friends. He ended up asking me. We're good. But it was that, like, as a teenager, was like, that is the most mortifying thing that has ever happened to me.
That's pretty bad. Wow. I had real secondhand embarrassment just now.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so I have a visual aid, and we asked the question earlier, what advice would we go back and tell our teenage self?
Oh no.
I think I would have, like, obviously mine was meaningful and stuff, but also, hey, maybe don't think that you should, try to keep up with fads. So here's my visual aid, and I will be just audio descriptive for our listeners on screen. But this is what I would tell myself to not ever do again.
Oh,
sweet
Yeah.
Tobin.
Yeah, this is a lot of layers in this. Not only was I a freshman in high school and incredibly awkward, but
that a puka shell necklace?
Puka shells
Yeah, I was
not
about to say,
great.
yeah, puka shell.
Don't wear the pooks.
They
Also-
pinched your neck hair so bad. Was I the
Oh,
only
yeah.
one it's like it would, or your skin?
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, if you're just listening, there is a very distinctive orange color of my hair that I thought was going to be really awesome frosted blonde hair. And because I didn't think through this, I just kind of like painted it on my head instead of like doing the cap and everything.
Mm.
And so my hair is just bright Justin Timberlake NSYNC orange.
Yeah, very boy band.
But the worst part about this, if you were to zoom out on this picture, which I'm not going to, this is the day of church directory pictures that I did this the day
Oh.
before church directory pictures. So that now it just lives in the glory forever of the
Gotta make a
Olin Mills
statement.
directory. So, so yeah, this is probably one of I've had a list of embarrassing, stupid things that I've done, but this is always one of the first ones I go to of, yeah, you had to walk around like that for a long time, you moron. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
So
Yours actually ties really well into my picture. Your hair actually looks like hats that I used to wear. So
don't know
tell
if
me
that's a
if
good
that's
thing or
not
not.
the exact same. My hat looks like your hair.
yeah, that's true. Maybe that's what I was going for. I was going for straw hat. Yeah.
So I'm always sent pictures like this, and people are like, "Look at these pictures I found of you." And I'm really not kidding. 9 times out of 10, I was in a costume of sorts. I was always wearing costumes in
Just for
public.
real life, though?
And yeah, I mean, just oh my gosh, I don't. I just
So
was
insensitive.
always trying to laugh and make others laugh. Someone literally, our family went to San Antonio 2 weeks ago. And my parents reminded me that when I went to the Alamo, this is so bad. When I went to the Alamo as a teenager, my friends and I brought a fart machine into the Alamo. I'm like,
That's a grave site.
oh my word.
To be fair, it's not the actual Alamo site, so
No,
you
it's
kinda-
not. But
yeah.
still, I just looking back, there was nothing I wouldn't do for a laugh. And I really missed the bar on appropriateness.
That's how we learn.
times.
That's how we learn.
But
Wow.
it's another one of those things of as an adult, if all the adults I know, like if you were to show up like in a banana costume to some random like Tuesday night thing, I'd be like, oh, it's just Sarah. And so
Yeah.
that's something awesome that you bring to the table now. So
Is it? I can't decide if I'm offended or like
No, it's a
enthralled
good
by
thing.
that. Yeah. No, I'm the costume. Yeah.
She's trying to think through the
Great.
3 banana costumes she has, which one
Hey,
she would
you know
actually
what?
use.
Do we go inflatable? Do we go
Right. They're all hanging up in the closet behind you, you know.
next to the fart machine that I
Right.
currently still
You
own?
still have.
I guess I'll land the plane with do y'all remember starter jackets?
yes,
From back in the day?
Oh,
love
yeah.
starter
Yeah,
jackets.
starter jackets were huge. And I was on the early end of the starter jacket. And for those who might be too young or too old, I guess, they were a line of just sports jackets that came out in the early 90s that everybody had to have. They were huge, oversized. At the time, I was a Miami Dolphins fan. We lived in Germany, so all my bad things happened in Germany.
You lived in Germany?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah. But I remember because we lived there, they had a really limited number of jackets you could buy. And so I was so desperate to be cool and have a starter jacket that I just bought the one that they had with a team I didn't even like. I wore a New York Giants starter jacket, and I remember my parents saying, "Are you sure you want to like? You don't even like the Giants?" I'm like, yes, I have to have this. And so I compromised all of my sports standards and just bought this Giants jacket and wore it around to the absolute confusion of all the people around me. They're like, "Oh, you like the Giants?" Like, no, not really. I just like the jacket because I was so compelled.
I
That's
just like
what
friends.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's what
To make
cool
you
kids-
feel better, I did the exact same thing with a jacket, and it was the Phoenix Suns because I just wanted a starter jacket, and it was on sale. So
I feel better now. I feel like
Yeah.
I had someone who understands what I was doing because it makes no sense to me now.
It's good.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us for our 100th episode. And we're going to keep going with this podcast thing. So, Sarah, hopefully we'll have you back at some
thanks for
point.
being here.
See you in 7 more years.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully not. But if you are not subscribed to this podcast, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Share this episode with a friend, and just make sure that they know what we're doing, because we've got some really good stuff coming up too in the next couple of weeks. And with that, we'll see you next time.